Hey, everybody. Welcome to Before You Go Live. I am a co host of Before You Go, which is a podcast. And to say that we love history is an understatement because we are a podcast who interviews 100-year-old guests and, of course, or people who are just getting up there. You don't have to be exactly 100. But we get to hear history from first-person accounts. And so one thing we like to do in our live segments is introduce audiences to other people who love history. So sometimes we'll have on historians, and if they have books, that's part of our Before You Go book series. But if we get to go to a museum like we do today, that's part of our Rewind in Time series. So my co-host Bryant Monte loves that term, taking a rewind in time. So that's what we're doing today. So we're going to go to a place where my chief marketing officer for Before You Go actually went to school. Tell us more about it, Cynthia. Cynthia
Hello,
Wagner.
everyone. Hey, best friend.
Hey.
Okay, so yes, I did go to Creighton University. Before I went to Creighton University, I went to a majority Black school in elementary and all throughout like junior high and high school. So I was always a majority in my school. And then when I went to Creighton, all of a sudden I was a minority. And I had to look for friends. And I think there was like maybe 5 of us at Creighton University, but we were like a family. Like we were really close to each other. You know, we helped each other out. It was just, it was a small group of people. And I found out after I left Creighton that there was a history museum, a Black history museum. And I wish I had known about it before because I left Creighton because I didn't feel like I fit in.
And you were in Omaha, Nebraska.
I was in Omaha, Nebraska. Yes. And I just didn't feel like I fit in.
I didn't know why you went there, but I was just like, okay, because we're from St. Louis, and I didn't even think about Nebraska, but I knew that Cynthia was there, and I was like, okay, well, that's the place where Cynthia went. That's all I knew. It's all I knew.
Yeah. So, I left because I was a minority. I felt like I was a minority and I wanted to go back home. But after, years later, I found out that there was a Black history museum. And I wished that I had known about the Black History Museum because I would have learned more about Omaha, Nebraska, about the people who were there. As a matter of fact, there were more Black people there before I came to Creighton. So I'm just really excited about talking to our guest today and to talk about and for him to explain the Black History Museum and everything he has to share with us. He's a very intelligent man, full of wealth.
Very intelligent,
full of knowledge.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's bring on Eric L. Ewing, who's going to talk to us about the Great Plains Black History Museum in Omaha, Nebraska. A little bit about Mr. Ewing. Not only is he retired Navy, shout out to our military, he graduated undergrad SIU Carbondale, which is on the other side of St. Louis from where we're from, from Omaha. But then he went on to get all these graduate degrees and certificates. And I think he's working on his PhD. It's just like he doesn't stop learning. Tell us, Mr. Ewing, how are you doing today? And we love intelligent people and those who love to read and learn and explore. And that's you. Take it away.
Yes,
Talk
great.
to us about what's going on there.
Well, thanks first of all for having me on, and I appreciate sharing what little bit of knowledge I have with everyone. And as I always tell folks, I'm a lifelong learner. As long as someone allows me to go to school, I'll continue to go. But I'm glad to be here representing the Great Plains Black History Museum. We've been around since 1975. And actually opened the doors in the old Webster building here in Omaha, Nebraska in 1976. The museum was founded by Mrs. Bertha Calloway. Mrs. Calloway was born in 1925, and she unfortunately passed away in 2017. She was an African-American community activist and historian in North Omaha, Nebraska. She was the founder of the Negro History Society and the Great Plains Black History Museum. She was a student of Creighton University and also a member of the Deporus Club. She was very active throughout the community, and as I tell folks when they visit the museum, I always make sure I mention her, because without talking about her, I would be doing the museum an injustice, because without her, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So I am happy to be here.
Shout out to Miss Calloway and all who loved her. Fantastic. So give us a lay of the land. What's the museum like? Where is it? Tell us more.
Well, the museum is currently located at 2221 North 24th Street in the historical Jewel Building. Now, the Jewel Building was at one time the home of the Dreamland Ballroom, which had some of the greatest jazz artists of all time play there. You had Nat King Cole, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald. If you were a jazz artist, you played here in Omaha. And I tend to share with my Kansas City and my St. Louis visitors visit the museum, I share with them that we actually had more jazz artists play here in the city of Omaha than in Kansas City and St. Louis. Although they're more known for jazz.
We're gonna hold on to our jazz trophy.
Right, we are.
One of the reasons that was because the way the railroad was situated, and if the musicians were traveling by rail, whether they were going north, south, east, or west, they were going to have a layover here in Omaha. And if you're in the entertainment business, you're looking for some place in the evening to entertain. And a lot of times those individuals would entertain right here in the Dreamland. I mean, standing room only crowds. Matter of fact, the song I share with folks, the song that put Nat King Cole on the map, he wrote it right here in Omaha, Nebraska. The song was called Straighten Up and Fly Right.
I love that song.
After that
There's
song,
a little bounce to it.
He blew up. Yes. So
I love it.
But we a pretty rich history as it pertains to jazz and to other things. As I was mentioning to earlier today, I was talking to some folks, and we're talking about some of the athletes that have come from Omaha. I mean, we've got athletes that from three different in the Hall of Fame who played football, basketball, and baseball. We have Bob Gibson, who was from Omaha. He played for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he was the MVP of the 1963 World Series.
Yeah.
We have Gail Sayers, who played professional football for the Chicago Bears. He was from Omaha. His brother was a great athlete as well, a track star, Roger Sayers. And we had Bob Boozer, who was a basketball Hall of Famer and also Olympic gold medal winner. We have a Heisman Trophy winner in Johnny Rodgers. And we have the first African-American to start at quarterback in the NFL in Marlon Briscoe, all from the city of Omaha.
Wow. Amazing.
And when you think of people in the public eye, we've got Mrs. Gabrielle Union and Mrs. Kathy Hughes.
Kathy Hughes, yeah. I didn't know about Gabrielle Union, but yes, of course, Kathy Hughes being one of your more famous residents, I think.
I share with people about her as well. Her mom was woman power before it even became a term. Her mom sung in an all-female band known as the Sweethearts of Rhythm. And they played upstairs in the Dreamland, and they played throughout the United States.
Oh, super cool. Yeah. Well, it was natural for her to go into radio then. Build an empire. But Gabrielle Union, I did not know. So do you know when she moved out to Hollywood?
I know she attended University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and I believe it was shortly after that time frame. So I don't know exactly when she went out west.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then I think you have 2 permanent exhibits there.
Yes, we currently have 2 permanent exhibits. They're kind of a yin and yang exhibit. One is called Hate, and the other is called Hope. And unfortunately, what makes it Hate is it focuses on the ugly part of history as it pertains to the Great Plains of America, as well as Omaha. There were roughly, and these are documented lynchings, roughly about 174 documented lynchings that have occurred throughout the Great Plains of African American people. And in none of those 174 incidents were any of those individuals ever found guilty in a court of law. The mobs that lynched them, they were judge, jury, and executioner. We unfortunately had 2 lynchings that occurred right here in the city of Omaha. One was the lynching of George Smith, aka Joe Cole. He was lynched here in Omaha on October 10th of 1891. And then Will Brown, he was lynched here in Omaha September 28th of 1919. George Smith was
1919.
Yes.
That feels real recent.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Well, when I was putting together the exhibit to capture that bit of history, I actually had an opportunity to speak to 3 individuals who had firsthand conversations with individuals that witnessed that event.
Oh my goodness.
So, when you sometimes a person may say, well, that was 100 years ago. But then when you say, well, I remember speaking to my grandfather about this event, and then that actually shrinks that 100 years down to where it makes it recently. Yes. And I post on our Facebook page daily events that happen throughout American history. And one of the most recent lynchings occurred just as recently as 2004. And I believe that was down in Alabama or Mississippi. A gentleman went back home to dispute home ownership or land ownership, and he was found lynched during that time. So, we tend to want to say, well, those are things of the past. But as we, do more research and we find out more information, we find out, that unfortunately events like those are happening all the time. And even today, some people say there's other means in which, unfortunately, African-American men in particular are being wrongly killed.
2020, George Floyd was lynched.
Yes.
So yeah, it's very recent and always tragic. And is there a lesson that we're learning? I don't even know how to frame that question. Why aren't we learning the lessons? Who's not learning the lessons? Why do these lynchings continue? I mean, have you heard any discoveries when you have guests talk there or historians talk about the lynchings, the hate part of your exhibit?
Well, I think the reason that things like that continue to happen because, unfortunately, in a lot of cases or situations, there's no consequences.
Absolutely.
If you nothing can happen, if you feel that you've been empowered to do things and not have to suffer any repercussions, I think that causes people to then maybe take advantage, in some cases, take advantage of their privilege. One thing I've shared with folks is this last year, I imagine, I know I'm not the only person, but the events with COVID and with the social injustices and everything, it has on myself personally, it has become pretty heavy and kind of a burden. And because it's one of those situations where, after we finish this conversation, I can't just take and hang up my blackness. It's going to accompany with me, and I have to be cognitive of that. And so, excuse me, it has created a level of anxiety for me, and and I'm having to work through those things.
We sharing that with you. Wouldn't you agree, Cynthia?
Oh yeah, I definitely agree.
It gets real heavy.
Yeah, it is.
And then Malcolm X.
Yes.
Is from
Malcolm
Omaha.
X is from Omaha.
Because I was going to go
Born
ahead.
May
19th.
May 19th, 1925. He's from Omaha.
Wow.
And surprisingly, a lot of folks don't know a lot of the great historians that have actually visited the city of Omaha as well. We've had Frederick Douglass here
Awesome.
twice.
Wow.
In late 1870s and in 1893-94 timeframe. As we mentioned before, you have Malcolm X. He was born here. He then visited again as an adult. Dr. King visited the city of Omaha twice, once in 1958, then again in 1961. And at the time when he visited in 58, Reverend Abernathy, also a great civil rights leader, he accompanied Dr. King. So those individuals, and then former President Obama, he visited the city of Omaha 3 times.
Wow.
So,
now, what was he talking about when he came to Omaha, President
well,
Obama?
he was campaigning the first time for president, campaigning for re-election, and then he came towards the end of his last year in office.
Okay, so the second permanent exhibit is called Hope. Was
Yes.
Obama part of that? Because that was his platform.
Yes, he is part of the Hope exhibit. He
I knew it.
With Frederick Douglass, Malcolm X, Kathy Hughes. Another thing a lot of people aren't aware of is as many Tuskegee Airmen that we've had from either born here in Omaha or lived here in Omaha. We actually have two schools in the state of Nebraska named after Tuskegee Airmen. We have Paul Adams Elementary School, which is located down in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then we have Alfonso Davis Middle School, which is located here in Northwest Omaha. So, and we've had roughly about 17 of them that called Nebraska home.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yes, and we put an exhibit up on focusing on them in November because Veterans Day is held in November, and then we also focus on local African Americans who have served. And I tell people when we put that exhibit up, it's just to bring recognition to those who have served. They don't have to be a Purple Heart recipient, a Medal of Honor recipient, or anything, but they just have had to serve because folks tend to say that the military goes unrecognized. And I would tend to agree. And I say if the military as a whole goes unrecognized, then African Americans or minorities who serve in the military go even more unrecognized. So it's an opportunity to bring awareness for those individuals and for those individuals to receive the accolades and the appreciation from the community of their service as well.
Well, tell us more about your service in the Navy and what years was that service and what did you do?
Well, now you're gonna make me tell my age, dear, huh? I actually,
it's just us.
If the beer doesn't give it away, I actually I served in the Navy from 1984 to 2004. I went in with the purpose of furthering my education, and I had an opportunity to serve, and I worked in the medical field, the healthcare field. I served on board 4 different ships as the senior medical department rep. Wow. And then my last duty, I was enlisted, but my last duty station, I served as the education service officer at the Naval Hospital in Bremerton, Washington. And so from there, after I got a chance to go all around the world, go to the continent of Africa, visit 3 different countries in Africa. Nice. And I actually collect chess sets, and I've collected chess sets from all the countries I've ever been to, and I collected 3 of them from different countries there in Africa. But it was wonderful. I used to tell folks if somehow they could figure out a way in which you could take your family on deployment with you, then I would have stayed forever, But unfortunately, once you get to the magic 20 and you have to be away from your family, that's really truly by choice. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I once I got to the 20 mark, I retired and then started working in higher ed, and was going to stay in higher ed, but then I decided that I serve better coming back and working in the community in which I'm from, because you mentioned some of my educational accomplishments. I had a lot of people that had their fingers crossed that I just graduate from high school. So to
Wow.
actually have an opportunity to achieve and accomplish the things educationally that I've been able to, I wanted that to be kind of a role model or something to maybe inspire someone else to achieve a little higher, a little bit more in education. Because for me, the importance of education, the light bulb didn't come on until I went to college. And then that's when it became kind of like, hey, I just started absorbing it and just loving it. And so anytime I get an opportunity to take a class or go to school, I'm all for it, especially if I don't have to pay for it.
Absolutely. Do you think the Navy helped with the discipline of let me continue on this educational path and go for those certificates and honors and graduations? And
I would say yes, but then I would also say that one of my strengths is also one of my weaknesses. I've always been passionate and always been, trying to be my best. But in doing so, sometimes it puts you in a situation where it adds undue stressors on you. But yeah, I would say it definitely gave me the better understanding of the importance of responsibility.
Yes.
And the of being my best. If you're going to do it, don't just do it to the best of your ability, so that way you can benefit from it, and also individuals that you're doing it with or working with can benefit from it.
Yes, my son is actually in the Navy, and it did shape him up. And he really didn't care about education too much after school. But once he got into the Navy, he said, "Mom, I can't talk to you. I'm trying to do homework. I'm trying to study." And I was like, "What? Study?
who are you?
Yeah, who are you? What you doing,
my son?"
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
He's going to be terrific.
Yeah.
He's doing amazing. I
Yeah,
know you're so proud, Cindy.
I am. I'm so proud of him. I'm glad the Navy helped my son out. Go Navy.
Yes.
You're helping my son.
Tell him to send us t-shirts.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's traveling right now, so he's been doing what you said, going to different countries. So yeah, he's living his life, and that's what I want him to do. That's what I want all my kids to do is just go out and explore life and get your education.
Yes.
Straighten up.
Yeah, because my children, I have my oldest son, he lives in Texas with his family. My youngest son lives in New Hampshire with his family. And my daughter, she just moved back here from Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
And so, I used to tell folks I've got all three, areas of travel covered. If I want to go on vacation, I don't have to worry about hotels or anything. So.
Right.
So sweet. Well, now that things are opening up a bit in the country and people might want to travel, what kind of activities do you have going on at the Great Plains Black History Museum?
Well, right now we are, as you said, we're open for visitors, but we're open by appointments. Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 1 to 5. People can go to our website to schedule those appointments. They're our time slots. And when they schedule it that way, then I take them on a tour and discuss the exhibits with them and the importance of some of the artifacts that are on display in the exhibit. And then we also provide virtual tours. We had the opportunity last year to reach over 39 different states with virtual tours. We reached as far as Hawaii and Alaska, on the West Coast, and then as far as Rhode Island and Florida on the East Coast. And then we reached a family in Canada, a family in Portugal, and two families actually in the UK. So virtually, it's allowed us to reach an audience that we would not have otherwise reached, and we love having that component. But I'm as I share with folks, we're kind of at a point where we're zoomed out,
Yes.
yeah, if
We
possible,
want to come in person again.
Yes. Yeah. And fortunately for us too, Omaha, when people are doing the bucket list to do all 50 states, when they decide to do their bucket list and they come to Omaha, come to Nebraska, a lot of our African American visitors, they Google things for them to do, and we're always one of the spots that they schedule to stop by and visit. So we get
nice.
quite a few folks in that way. Matter of fact, I had a family of 6 yesterday from St. Louis that came to visit. So it was kind of nice for them, and they weren't aware of some of the history as well of things that occurred here in Omaha.
Well, tell us, because you were mentioning when we were speaking earlier that the largest Black population at one point, your side of the Mississippi, was Omaha.
Outside of Los Angeles.
Outside of Los Angeles, that's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people, you get that little joke when I used to travel around and whatnot. People, and I'd say, "Well, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska," and they're like, "Oh, really? Are you? I didn't know that. Black folks
people live there."
Yeah, and so I always then share with them that that there was a large population. The packing industry meat packing industry was a big employer of folks in Omaha. And a lot of African Americans migrated up from the South to actually work at the packing house. I tell folks the packing house for Omaha was like the car manufacturing was for Detroit. The only unfortunate thing is that as the facilities start to close down, individuals, didn't have any other trade or skill, and so they had to leave or follow where those jobs and those businesses went, and then they left the Omaha area.
Right.
Okay. I have a few people in the comment. I'm going to go to the comments for 2 people that made a comment. We have Merle Huckabee. She said, "This is awesome. We need to know more about our history. It's not enough being taught in our schools. History is definitely repeating itself." Thank you, Merle. And then we have someone that asked, is there a cost for the virtual tour?
For the virtual tours, what we like to do with the virtual tours is organizations or businesses. What we do is what I call luncheon tours. And we take an organization, a company on a virtual tour. The tour is about 45 minutes, and then 15 minutes of Q&A. And I generally tell organizations that it's donations. We accept donation because I don't want to say, well, it's this much, and then the organization say, well, that's too much. And I don't want to say, oh, it's this much, and the organization say, oh, wow. And we had planned on donating more, and they end up, giving less. So we leave it to the organizations to provide the amount in which they feel that they can handle. But we do like to do organizations or groups. If it's 1 or 2 individuals, it's unfortunate. It's not a convenient thing. I don't want to say a convenient thing, but it's not a conducive event for us to do.
Okay, so Merle has another question. She wanted to know, are there any partnerships with the schools, like the high schools and elementary schools? Because this is some rich history, and it should be incorporated to some of the schools.
Yes. Before I answer that question on that she asked, I also want to go back to the first statement that she made. I generally tell folks I learned more about Black history when I went to college and took my first Black studies class than I did my whole K through 12 experience going to school here in Omaha. We provide virtual tours, and we've used to provide live tours for schools. So far this year, I believe we've provided virtual tours for, I want to say, about 10 of the schools here in Omaha. Some of them the public schools, and some of them the private schools. And matter of fact, next Friday, I have a virtual tour scheduled for Monroe Middle School, which is one of the middle schools here in Omaha. So yes, they have. I've provided virtual tours for Skinner Magnet, for Conestoga, for Sacred Heart, for Creighton Prep, a few other schools. I can't remember right off the bat, but yes, we do provide those to those organizations, and we tailor them towards the age group, because for third, maybe even fourth grader, we don't really discuss much on the hate exhibit, because we don't feel that they're ready to comprehend that information, and so we do discuss the hope with them.
Oh, yes. One of the comments was asking if they're individual tours. So I believe, yes, we can walk in as individuals.
Yes, you can. You can visit. You can visit live from out of town. What we do is when we do have our face-to-face visitors, we require a face mask. We do a touchless temperature checks, and we do have 2 touchless hand sanitizer stations, and then we have our social distancing markers placed on the floor, and we actually have them farther apart than just 6 feet. So then that way it helps folks feel a little bit safer.
Awesome. Now, what do you feel the demographics are now as far as African Americans in Omaha? Is there a percentage that you guys quote?
I think at last about 13 to 14%. Yeah.
In the city, not bad. So a lot of people learning about African American history, which is awesome through your space. What are some other events? Do you rent it out for receptions?
Prior to the pandemic, we would small groups, if they wanted to kind of do a evening event here, then we allow them to do that. There's an organization here in Omaha called the Empowerment Network, and what they do first Fridays, and we've been doing that virtually. And so what they do is they'll come in and we'll discuss one particular exhibit, and then folks who are attending the first Friday event in the evening, they'll be able to see that particular exhibit. The current exhibits we have on display right now, we have the African American Women Her Story exhibit. Not his story, but her story exhibit.
That's right.
That exhibit features Mrs. Hughes. She's in that exhibit. Gabrielle Union's in the exhibit. We have pencil drawings, number 2 pencil drawings of historically recognized African American women from throughout the country. Then, as I mentioned before, we have the hate exhibit, then the hope exhibit. We have a condensed exhibit called 24th in Glory, which actually features a real Heisman Trophy.
Oh, nice.
Yes, Johnny Rogers allows us to display his Heisman Trophy, and whenever he needs it, he calls me up, I box it up, and then he takes it away and brings it back after he's done. We have that. We have the black citizenship in the age of Jim Crow. This exhibit is actually on canvas. And we got it from the New York Historical Society, and it was supposed to be put on poster board, but I actually had it printed on canvas to make it look more museum-ish, like, and so and then my dad built the frames around it. So that exhibit, and then we have an exhibit called the Deporus Club, ahead of their time. They were a civil rights group which started on the campus of Creighton University back in 1948. And they staged some boycotts and protests based upon economics as it impacted the African American community. Matter of fact, I always bring up where everyone is aware of Mrs. Rosa Parks and the boycott that she started. But I point out her boycott started in 1955. Our boycott of the buses and the streetcars here in Omaha started in 1948.
Wow.
Now, that's something that a lot of people probably didn't know.
No, yeah, a lot of people aren't aware. And last Thursday, I had an opportunity to have one of the students who was a member of the Deporus Club. She came in. She's 92 years old.
Oh,
so
my God.
I had an opportunity to get her photos next to the photo I have of the group. And that particular organization consisted of African Americans as well as European Americans, male, females. And so it was a pretty active organization here. They staged a boycott of the Coca-Cola bottling company. They staged a boycott of one of the ice cream companies known as Reed's Ice Cream, and a few other protests. But the one thing I like about their protests were focused on the economic inequalities versus just the access inequality.
Now, with the 1948 boycott, because I believe the 1955 bus boycott in Montgomery was about a year long. For the 1948 boycott, how long was that?
It lasted until 1954.
What?
Yes.
From 48 to 54?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Why don't we know about that? Why was Montgomery more popular than this one?
Well, because I think the more focus was on that area of injustice, and it was in the South. And
this was 6 years.
Yeah, I know. But see, the problem is that people want that projection or that story told of the North, that these events and things like that didn't happen in the North. If you've ever heard of sundown towns,
yes,
there were more sundown towns in the North, than there were in the South. And the two most viewed pictures of lynchings was the lynching of Will Brown, and the name of the other gentleman who was lynched. Both of those occurred in northern states. One in Indiana, and then Will Brown's lynching here in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Rich history.
Yes.
Well, we want to wrap up soon, but we could talk forever because we love history. And you're getting your PhD now. Did I read?
Yes.
So you're still in school.
Well, I share with folks now, I'm actually considering, I'm looking at maybe going for an ED.
Okay.
Because the fact that a PhD was something I was focused on when I was looking to go into the direction of higher ed, because I felt it would be of value for me to go that route. But since my interest is no longer to work full time in higher ed, I've been thinking about doing ED, because then I can create a capstone project, something that can be implemented and used over time, versus a dissertation that sometimes tends to sit on a shelf, or now I should say sit in on the computer collecting dust and maybe cite it every now and then. So I figured I'm thinking about going that route, because I think it would be of more value to myself personally, and more value to what I'm doing now.
A working degree, yeah.
Yes.
Cynthia, do you want to read what our producer Chris Dinwiddie posted?
Okay. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris. In reference to the Rosa Parks, go ahead.
He said, I heard that it was because Rosa Parks was light skinned.
Now, and I want to add to that. I know that about a few months prior to Rosa Parks, Miss Parks, her defiant stance, there was another young woman who also did the same thing on the bus, but she was 15, if I'm correct, and pregnant. So being pregnant at 15 was not a good look from what the local civil rights activists thought. And they thought Rosa Parks was a better look. So I don't know about the light skin thing, Chris, but I know that documented is that the young woman. I'm just saying that we missed whole 6 years happening in Omaha.
Yes, we did.
Before coming to Montgomery.
Well, and there were other protests even earlier. Right. in some of the bigger cities, in New York, with the streetcars and whatnot. So but the problem is that what brought her protest to light was because it was an organized and it was a planned event.
Right.
And so that's what I think brought the attention. And again, as you did say, the young 50-year-old young lady, unfortunately, would not, from a viewpoint at that particular time, it wouldn't look as good and wouldn't serve the purpose in which they were trying to address. Even though it should be recognized of what she did and what she tried to accomplish.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Well, tons of stories. That's why the museums are here. We encourage everyone to visit your local museum. We encourage you to travel to them. And I have to get to Omaha. I feel left out here on the call here because I'm the only one who hasn't been. Cynthia, are you going back?
Yes, now I am going to go back. I know the museum is there and I'm hearing about all this history. I just wish that I had known about it when I was going to school there because I had no idea. But yes, I mean, this was just really great. I know you had mentioned before about taking a picture with someone who was 92 years old. Yes. And speaking of that, our podcast, we interview 90-year-old people and over, and most of the people in our episodes are 100 years old or more. So have you had a chance to kind of listen to any of our episodes, and what do you think?
Oh, yes. I listened to the Negro League Baseball when the gentleman who played in the Negro League but also worked for NASA. I listened to that one, and I found that to be very interesting and kind of cool there. And matter of fact, as you was mentioning, most of the people you do the podcast with are 100 years old or more. And I'm like, well, okay, I hope folks don't think I'm that, I'm at that point. But yeah, very interesting. And, when you emailed me that information, I put it in my favorites. So not only did I listen to that one, but I'm going to listen to some of the other ones as well.
Great.
Information.
Yeah, because we're finding 100-year-olds popping up all over the place, so we can't keep up. But
well, maybe in the future we can get back when we both get to that point.
Yes. Okay. It's a date. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ewing. We had so much fun with you. So I'm sure it's going to be just as lively when we see you in person. We definitely have to get there. That's going to be a fun before you go trip. And everybody, please follow us, subscribe, download our podcast, beforeyougo.tv. Visit that website, beforeyougo.tv, and learn all about where you can find us and our special super seniors. We love them. We also love history. So if you want to contribute in any way to showing us a tour of where we need to go to find some important history in the U.S. and beyond, please drop us a line. Let's all stay in touch because the more we know, the better things will be, right?
Yes,
The more we grow. Yes, I love it. All right. Thanks for everyone for taking this rewind in time with us. We had such a blast with you, Mr. Ewing. What a wonderful Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And I just want to say one more thing. Please, once you listen to the episodes, please share it with other people and ask them to download, please.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. And to our audience, we'll see you at beforeyougo.tv. Let us know your comments too about our fabulous guest and join our Facebook group as well. And please, please visit the Great Plains Black History Museum in Omaha, Nebraska next time you get a chance and say hi to our fantastic executive director here. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.
Thank you.